Argonauta Records. Hi dear Argonauts, hope you are doing well. Here we are with the fourth episode of Argonauta TV, and we start again as we did in the last episode with an Italian band. Megatherium is a doom sludge band from Verona, Italy. Since its beginning in 2011, its sound is a deliciously dark blend of metal and sludge, crammed full of powerful yet clean vocals, scorching low-tuned guitar riffs set at full volume, bone-crushing distorted bass and tumultuous drumming. Being part of a Megatherium live show is like being run over a huge wall of slow and heavy distorted groove, hitting the listener like a sledgehammer. In the middle of this arena of riffage and rhythm, vocals stand out with a mix of sludge roar and clean melodics, supported by a clever use of keyboards and samples. This is the eye from their latest effort, God. Following their critically acclaimed second album Postmortem in 2018 and countless shows, Splendidula continue to serve as a cocktail of traditional doom, blistering sludge, post-metal grooves and psychedelia drones. Big riffs meet pounding beats with atmospheric passages that will lead you into a wild, heavy and psychedelic wonderland, while the bewitched vocals by front lady Christian and guitarist Peter's harsh screams create a haunting vocal contrast. We at Argonauta Records are proud to run the release of a live album by Maryland doom metal legends Iron Man. Originally formed in 1988, Iron Man became one of the most distinctive doom metal bands of all time, not just for paying excellent tribute to Godfather's Black Sabbath, but with their very own blend of heavy sounds. Iron Man toured the world with bands like Cathedral and Pentagram, released unforgettable classic doom masterpieces, and left a huge gap in the world's music scene when the group disbanded in 2018, after the passing of their founding member and guitarist Alfred Morris III. 2014 saw the iconic band at the height of their powers, when they performed at the Castle of Doom Festival in Pagazzano, Italy, on July the 5th. It was Iron Man's first and only trip to Italy. As a tribute and a monument to all, we will release this memorable live moment by Iron Man, titled Hail to the Reef, as a limited edition double vinyl, gold-colored, also featuring one previously unreleased studio song. Dee Colun, the singer, created this haunting video to As the Gods Have Spoken.
Let me hear you! Let me hear you!
The special guest of today is J.J. Cockton, mostly known in the scene as the man who supports us all. The Obelisk is in fact a one-man operation covering underground heavy in its various forms and writing as much as possible at all times. Welcome, J.J. So, who are you? Who is JJ, the man behind the Obelisk project? A husband, a father, a sports or beer and food lover? And how do you manage all your commitments?
Who is the man behind the Obelisk project? I guess that would be me. I guess I'm that guy. I'm just a guy. I don't know. Barely. Yeah. I don't know. I am a husband. I am a father. I don't drink. I'm not a beer lover. I am a lover of food. But with a long history of disordered eating behaviors. I'm just a guy. I don't know. I used to work in magazines for a long time. I wrote for print publications, and then in 2008, in late 2008, when the American economy collapsed, it took the magazine that I was working for with it. And so, having that fallen out and being committed to writing a number of reviews, I decided to launch my own thing as a outlet, just as my own outlet. I was tired of working for other people and decided I would do it on my own, and it just kind of became, 12 years later, it's just kind of become my my life's work. It's a weird one to say. As for how I manage my commitments, I'm a full-time caregiver. I'm a stay-at-home dad to my 3-year-old son. My wife and I are 3-year-old son, whom we love dearly, but who is time-consuming and energy consuming. He's a sweet kid, but woof. He's started preschool, but with COVID, everything is all screwed up. So So time management. I write as much as I can whenever I can. That's the easy answer, is I just do as much writing as possible at any given moment. Sometimes that looks like me getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Usually nowadays it's more like 5, 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30 if I'm feeling lazy. But I get up hopefully before our son is up, so that I can work on a review or whatever it is before he gets up. And then he gets up and he, has I get him breakfast and get him ready for school, and he goes to school, and I'll work while he goes 2 hours a day now, or 2.5 hours a day. So I have that time. Most of the time, although COVID has screwed that up too, because then there's remote school. It's all a mess. The easy answer is I write when I can write, and I try not to take on more than I can do, though I fail at that all the time.
What first got you into music? Do you sing or play an instrument, or you prefer to write about music?
Can't really remember a time when I wasn't into music. When I was little, my father played music a lot. My mother liked music. There was always music on in the car. When I was a kid, my older sister was into music, and it just kind of was a thing. I don't actually play an instrument. I'm terribly uncoordinated. I sang in a few bands over the years, and have kind of started inching back into it a little bit. But I am no singer by any means. I don't consider myself a musician or even a vocalist really anymore. Writing is the thing that I want to do most. It's it's the thing in my head that every second I'm not doing it, every second I spend dedicated to something else, I'm going, why am I not writing right now? That's where it's at for me.
When and how the obelisk was born? Did you expect this impressive feedback from people?
Yeah, the obelisk was born January 31st, 2009, I believe, in my mother-in-law's house, where we were living at the time. After I was working at Metal Maniacs, was the magazine I mentioned earlier, in New York City, in 2008. It says happy birthday behind me, so happy birthday. It was 2007, 2008, I worked there, and then at the end of 2008, everything went to crap in the U.S. economy, and print industry, of course, was already lagging because of that pesky internet, and so I basically decided to switch teams and be on that pesky internet. I was very, very burnt out and very, very bitter about the music industry, and in some ways I still am, sort of very cynical about the music industry and kind of the give and take, what's the word? I can't think of it. Anyway, the push me, pull you, the transactional is the word. I was trying to think. It's like, what's Donald Trump? He's transactional. Relationships is that we're friends as long as we're working on something together. And then, like, I hear from people now, people are your friends when they're putting out a record, that kind of thing. But I mean, that's the nature of the business. Most of the, in almost all cases, I don't take that personally at this point. I'm a little bit over that, but at the time I was very, very, very bitter about it. And I think especially now, and I just wanted to kind of write about things that I'm passionate about, and that's what the obelisk is and kind of has become. The bottom line as regards feedback is I am incredibly, incredibly fortunate to have what audience I do. I consider what the obelisk does to be kind of a niche within a niche within a niche, right? You have music, music is super important as long as you give a shit about music, and then if you don't give a shit about music, it doesn't matter to you at all. You can go your whole life without ever listening to another song, and people do, and listening to a song on purpose, and people do, and that's their life, and they have other stuff going on. So music, and then heavy music, and then what I do, what I cover, what I think about, what I care about. So all of that is sort of divided. That there's anybody who gives a crap about any of it, let alone what I think about any of it, is tremendously humbling, and not something I take for granted, and not something I look past. Like, it is hugely important to me, and a big piece of why I do what I do, as much as I do. I try, I'm not very good at engaging with people in any form. There's a reason I'm the guy who sits on his laptop all the time and reviews records. It's because I suck at life, and I try to, I try to engage with people. When someone engages with me, someone says, "Hey, like what you do," I say thank you. But yeah, in general, I am deeply, deeply appreciative of what people say about the site, generally, and very, very. I try to live up to that. I try to be worthy of that in what I do. I don't know if I always get there, but it's something I try.
What do you think about 2000s heavy music, and which differences it has with the 70s, 80s and the 90s?
It seems to me that obviously the biggest difference between heavy music since the turn of the century or heavy music in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, the biggest difference is the internet. And what has changed is how we consume that media and how we engage with that media. If I like a song now, I can send that band a message 2 seconds later and hear back from them 2 seconds after that, if they're around and feel like answering. But that difference is amazing, and has completely changed how we engage with art and popular culture and all that stuff, and creative work, including our own creative work, including something like this. So it's huge, and it's hard to kind of even compare it to what has come before. Aesthetically, everything comes in ebbs and flows. I think heavy music right now is absolutely saturated with bands, and there are more coming. I said the same thing in 2012, and an entire generation of bands has come along since. So every time I think it can't get any bigger or broader, it does. So I would expect that to continue based on the opposite of my brain, which is usually a pretty good indicator of things, the opposite of what I think. But yeah, I if you sort of look at, and this kind of, if you sort of look at the progression of rock and roll into psychedelia, garage rock, into heavy rock, into progressive rock, into arena rock, into krautrock and prog and psych rock and no wave and new wave and no wave and punk and metal and I don't know, and doom and stoner rock and all that stuff and grunge and whatever. Of course, obviously I'm jumbling times, but yeah, I mean, one thing feeds off the next, as it always has. But I think what's really changed since since the year 2000, and kind of especially even in the last decade, with the sort of broader democratization of broadband media and mobile media consumption has really is that it's a technical change, especially in rock and roll. So much of what we're still engaging with is dudes holding guitars. It's what they're doing with them is different sometimes, and sometimes it very purposefully isn't, and that's a different thing. But a lot of it is the experiential end of music, and I think that extends even to concerts, when concerts exist. So
COVID changed everything. Also, the music biz has been impacted. Bands cannot play gigs, fans cannot attend them, and labels, agencies and venues are trying to find alternative ways to keep the music alive. What is your view?
My view on COVID and how it has changed everybody trying to find alternative ways to keep the music scene alive. I think it shows the persistence of creativity. I think it shows how crucial art is to both the people who make it and the people who are driven by the experience of it. I would count myself in the latter category. It's sort of, though I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I consider the obelisk a creative work, so maybe. I don't know, but I can do it at home, so I'm lucky in that regard. I don't have to be on a stage to do it, or in a studio surrounded by other people. But people finding alternative ways like live streams, and of course is the obvious example. But I think what's interesting that we're seeing this year, and will continue to see this year, is sort of a boom in live albums, as people sort of translate their streams into recordings or go into their archives. There's already a few releases, more than a few releases like that out there. And I think what's going to happen more and more this year is you're going to start to see the sort of COVID era manifest in studio works. We've already seen a ballooning of COVID era projects and collaborations that wouldn't have happened without COVID. So at the same time, people are trapped in their houses. That forces a new kind of creativity to take shape. You could Kadavar's doing the isolation tapes, or Tim Katz from Roadsaw putting out a solo album that magically has 13 other people from the Boston scene in it, some of whom he's in bands with, but all of that sort of collaboration that has almost had its hand forced by the situation, by lockdown, and sort of people finding new ways to create as a response to what's going on around them in the world. To an extent, that's always how it's been. There's a certain amount of shakeup that's happening. Some of it's good, some of it's very bad. I count the closing of venues as bad. Art will be art. You can't kill it. Nothing can kill it. I mean, there. As long as there's the species, there will be art, of one sort or another. But what that looks like on the other end of this, I'm not really sure. I think this summer we'll see a lot of outdoor shows. I don't know how venues as they were come back with limited capacities and expect and make any money. I don't know how that survives for at least the next few years, and if it can't make it through the next few years, I don't know how it survives at all. But humanity has a habit of forgetting, and so I suspect once the vaccine is wider spread, people will be eager to re-engage with live music, and I know I will be at that fucking show, whatever show that is. I will be there. So we'll see. No one really knows. I certainly don't. But I think even if the attitude has changed in that people appreciate it more, that's an effect of what has happened. So
the heavy music fan seems to be older and older. Is there any way to involve younger people, or we are losing them due to trap music? Any tips for who wants to start a band?
I agree with you. The heavy music fan is older and older. Yes. I have seen that. I think album-based music, I think rock and roll is an older art form at this point. Rock and roll, if you consider rock and roll starting in circa 1950, it's been 70 years. It's pretty impressive that it's lasted as long as it has. And the reason it's lasted, of course, is one generation passing it down to the next, and I think that will continue. As to the scale of that, I don't know. It seems to me that there's a lot of grassroots rock and roll, but that a lot of that grassroots is still very predominantly white and very predominantly male, in a way that could act as a gatekeeper against other from white and male, or even white and female, ladies and dudes of white peoples. It's hard, I think, for a new band now. If a band wants to engage young people, it probably helps for that band to be young. It seems like a no-brainer, but I look at a band like Howling Giant, who are not yet 30, and they're on Twitch. They're doing live streams, playing D&D every week. They're doing everything they can to engage their fans, and they're engaging them they're meeting people on sort of where people are, where those people are, where younger people are. Older people like me are on Facebook, or dicking around on Bandcamp. It's not, I don't think it's marketing, not brain surgery, right? Like, it's a matter of think about something like Dion and the Belmonts, like think about what was pop, right? It was teenagers and talking to teenagers, and even in the fucking 90s, you had these dudes who were like 25, 26, 27 years old talking about being 17. You know what I mean? Like, there's an element of it that's I think, especially heavy rock now, because in part because it's not trying to make a buck immediately in the same way or on the same scale. Everybody's happy to get a buck, don't get me wrong, but I think part of it is, the experiences that heavy music is speaking to are older. It's dudes talking about their job, right? It's not dudes talking about school. It's just an older form right now. I don't think it's always going to be that way. I don't think it's always going to exist, but it is. It is that now, and I'm just happy to enjoy what's out there. There are certainly kids, I think, with guitars. My kid's gonna have a guitar. So I think rock and roll will continue to be passed down. But I don't think it needs to be the same as it was or anything like that. And I think that a lot of the sort of rebellious spirit that was in rock and roll, purportedly, was, one, manufactured, and two, it's still there, except now the difference is the way to rebel against your parents is to not listen to rock and roll. It's either to listen to hip-hop, which is cool, whatever, or to, like, play video games, which is cool, if that's your thing. Like, and frankly, I don't know how any dude with any riff could possibly hope to compare to, like, the scale of production of either a PlayStation 5 game or fucking Cardi B or any sort of pop, hip-hop thing. You look at mainstream rock and roll right now, this shit is tired and weak. And it almost feels like it's entitled to your, like it thinks it's entitled to your time. That's obviously less the case in something that's not pop rock, but still, it's a much tougher market out there for a rock band, because there's so much more than just rock bands out there. So, any tips for anyone who wants to start a band? Fucking do it. Do it and I don't know, try to sound like your heroes and see how it works out.
If you could change anything about the industry, what would it be?
If I could change one thing about the industry, I would change touring. I would, if I could change one thing about the music industry, I would pay bands better to do shows in the States. And, a lot of art in America is viewed as sort of self-indulgence and something you do, something to kind of be put to the side from your work. If I could change anything about the industry, about the creative industry, about the music industry, about art in general, I would give it more support. Grants for everybody, universal basic income, a meal when you play a show, you know, someplace to stay, shit like that. Like you know, the music industry, I think even in the underground, I have certainly run into over the years a few entrepreneurial spirits who are going to be, I'm going to be the guy who comes in here and makes money off Stoner Rock. And no, you're not. No, you're not. Most people, I think, are lucky if they break even. Sort of working from an industry angle in the underground. And if you break even and if you make a little money, that's great. Good for you. Congratulations. That's success, I guess. But if I was going to change anything about the music industry on a broader level, I would give it more support. From sort of, I guess not just the companies that run it, but governments and the broader public. I guess that's more of a culture change, but so be it. I think that's the last question. So if it is, I'm going to pause. Well, no, fuck it. I think that's the last question. Thank you for your time. Elena, this was a pleasure. I very much appreciate you giving me the outlet to run my mouth, and thank you to anybody and everybody who watches us. It is deeply, deeply appreciated, and thank you for the support over the years with the Obelisk, and of course Argonauta Records is amazing, and thank you for having me. Okay.
Thanks, JJ, for the time spent with us, and thanks to you, Argonauta followers. Please let us know what do you think about the bands we've spoken, and also if you agree or not with JJ's opinions and thoughts by leaving a comment under the video. See you in 2 weeks on the 26th of March. Argonauta Records.